This is for my fellow hunters!
Hey guys, this is Taviasobi, and today there's nothing quite like the release of new Monster Hunter weapon videos to get me to carve time from my busy schedule at work, covering the pandemic, in order to put together a quick video. Yeah, so I'll just share some quick thoughts about what I found interesting with each weapon, and that's coming from a guy who's been playing since the PSP days. Given how Monster Hunter Rise is shaping up to be a combination of World and Iceborne with the old classic Monster Hunter series, I'm actually really looking forward to it. By the way, I must commend Capcom for managing to make the game look this good on a Switch. Obviously the system isn't exactly a powerhouse, but it looks like they're squeezing every bit of performance from it. I also find the new over-the-top voice acting to be quite hilarious. I mean, they just sound so anime. On that note, let's dive headfirst into the weapon rundown. Hope you guys have insurance. Let's kick things off with the classic starter of the Monster Hunter series, the Sword and Shield. Now, the Sword and Shield has really come of age from being a forgettable weapon in the beginning to an actually viable one thanks to constant improvements, and Monster Hunter Rise looks to be no different. From what they've shown in these videos, a few things stand out. Number one, it looks like the perfect rush combo that debuted in the last game is still here. Not sure if it retains its high damage upon perfect execution, but it appears that you can now end it with different finishers. That's actually great, since constantly repeating the perfect rush can get a bit boring in Iceborne after a while. The Falling Bash is also back, but it looks like it's a Wirebug art now that's called Falling Shadow. And then speaking of Wirebug arts, it also gets this new windmill move where you twirl your weapon around. What I'm especially excited about though is how the Sword and Shield appears to have a new counter or guard point added that can flow straight into the perfect rush. I just love that kind of stuff since it allows more aggressive play, and it also rewards knowledge of a monster's moveset. Up next is the weapon of choice for Attack on Titan fans, the Dual Blades. Now for folks who have played Generations Ultimate, there are a couple of things that might look familiar. One is the Shrouded Vault Wirebug art, which suspiciously looks like the Adept Dash or Dodge from GU. Back then this was a pretty useful move for either evading or going through an enemy attack and starting an attack of your own. The other is the Piercing Bind Wirebug art, which appears to be inspired by what is arguably the best hunter art for dual blades in GU, the Wolf's Maw. Basically, that art increased the number of attacks that you could dish out, making it seem like you're hitting with 4 blades instead of 2 back in GU. Yeah, now you're getting angry.
Now getting angry!
Next is the weapon that everyone either loves or loves to hate, the Longsword. Time to take a trip into memory lane. And by that, I mean all the times that I got tripped by my main hunting partner over the years, who was a Longsword user. Good times. Actually, to be honest, I started playing Monster Hunter as a gunner main, but the Longsword was also my main melee weapon until the Insect Glaive came out in Monster Hunter 4. So I do have a bit of a soft spot for it too. Apologies if I tripped you back in the old days. Anyway, the first thing I noticed is that the Helmbreaker appears to be a Wirebug art called Soaring Kick now. So instead of starting out with a sword thrust, you kick the monster in the air instead and then slash downward. So the condition and timing is a bit different, but it might actually be easier to hit now. But we'll see, based on actual playthroughs. And of course, the Longsword has pretty much turned into a counter weapon at this point. So we've got several options, like the Foresight and the EI slashes, for example. So what do you do to improve it? Why, add another counter, of course. I guess the philosophy for a Longsword counter is you can't have too much of a good thing. Yeah, so it gets another counter via the Wirebug art called Serene Pose. So Rise is not just doubling down, but tripling down on the Longsword as a counter weapon. By the way, I hear the Longsword is the favorite weapon of the Allstate guy, Dennis Haysbert.
Hope you've got insurance!
You're in good hands. Now it's time for some Pokey Pokey. No, not that Pokey Pokey, or Pokey Pokey. As we check out one of my favorite weapons in the game, the Lance. Right off the bat, you'll notice that you can now do a charged sideswipe, which is pretty neat. It kind of adds a little bit of purpose to the move now. Also, despite its huge shield, I actually love to play the Lance aggressively, and it looks like the changes in Rise further encourages that. The Twin Vine Wirebug art, for example, lets you quickly close the distance when your Wirebug is attached to the monster, which is actually similar to a move from the Magnet Spike weapon from Monster Hunter Frontier Double Zeta. I think that's what the game's called. Yeah, I used to watch a lot of Gundam. Anyway, I love this because it gives you one more option to quickly get close to the monster, except you don't run over your teammates and send them to another world, like Truck-kun. The same way you do with the Lance's running attack. Yeah, I've hit some folks with that before, but I never meant it. I never meant to isekai my teammates. And then you've got another Wirebug art called Anchor Rage, which not only works as a counter, but also increases your attack. So overall, I'm really loving what they've done with the Lance and Rise. No more holding back, baby. Next is Lance's more explosive cousin, the Gunlance, aka the Boomstick. Boy, is there a lot to unpack here. Now, compared to the Lance, the Gunlance requires a bit more micromanaging, and Rise gives the weapon some quality of life changes that help with that. First off, you can now guard while charging your Wyvern Fire. Took him a lot of games, but the light bulb finally clicked in the heads of the Gunlance hunters here. You can guard while doing the big boom boom. Yeah, so as someone who loves Wyvern Fire, one of the challenges was hitting it consistently due to the long charge time combined with your vulnerability while charging. This change where you can now guard greatly improves the Wyvern Fire's utility, though your teammates might not be super happy if you're not careful. Fire down the hole. The hunter's butthole. The weapon's other flashy move is the Wormstake Cannon, which appears to come out faster as well, which also helps. Then you've got a pretty nice cooldown reduction with the Hailcutter Wirebug art, which looks like it can go straight into shelling right after. You can even restore sharpness when guarding with the Guard Edge Wirebug art, further adding to the weapon's list of quality of life improvements. Also, if you look at the gear used in this video, you'll notice the return of an old friend, the Great Baggy. Oh, the memories of Monster Hunter Tri. Now it's time for the favorite weapon of the makers of Tylenol, the Hammer. Or Hammer Time as I call it. Please don't hurt him. First off, a big shout out to the classic Royal Ludroth armor. Man, I love that look. Honestly, it's the only armor that lets you hunt and then go camping at the same time. You're gonna sleep well when wearing that thing. So first off, I love how you're now able to do the aerial Sonic the Hedgehog move without having to slide down a slope. That move actually made my niece fall in love with Double Bambaro Arena after I showed her how to do it. Now, while the spinning aerial bludgeon is gated behind a Wirebug cooldown, it's just nice to be able to do it even on flat surfaces. Naturally, you can charge it, allowing you to power up the impact from a simple headache to an all-out migraine. Speaking of impact, check out the new Impact Crater Wirebug move. I actually find it hilarious that it leaves an actual impact crater on the ground when you do it. And when I say when you do it, I mean use your hammer. Like the hammer in the game. Just to be clear. Also, it appears that you can even do something similar to the old Valor step in Generations Ultimate. Though I'm not sure if it quite works the same way. Hello there, old friend. Anyway, it looks like Rise gives you even more options to hit a monster's head, especially tall monsters, which should be especially helpful to folks who are just learning the weapon. Now let's go to my favorite melee weapon in the series, the Insect Glaive. Now, unlike most of the other weapons, the Insect Glaive didn't exactly get some flashy moves based on the trailer so far, so the changes appear to be more like a fine-tuning of the weapon. Anyway, I'll reserve final judgment until I've seen all the moves available to the weapon. First off is the Silkbind Vault, which should remind players of Monster Hunter Generations Ultimate about the aerial Insect Glaive hunting style. Now, for folks to remember, that one actually replaced the regular aerial vault with a fast-moving one that covers a lot of distance. The aerial vault was actually a big reason why I primarily played aerial style in that game, though this time it's gated with a cooldown in Rise. It looks like this also extends the aerial combos we got in the last game and adds another option for aerial repositioning, which should be helpful. By the way, it isn't shown in this video, but previous clips indicate that the old downward aerial spike from Iceborne appears to be a Wirebug art now as well. And the next is the Recall Kinsect Wirebug art. This move refills the stamina of your Kinsect, allowing you to keep it out longer while also giving you a small healing effect. I mean, any move that reduces the number of times I need to call back my Kinsect as opposed to attacking the monster is welcome by me. In fact, the only thing I wish is that they gave Glaive users the option to get all Kinsect essence colors at once, like the Extract Hunter art from GU. But so far it doesn't look like there will be an option for that, based on the video shown. Also, that armor essentially confirms that my nemesis, Kezu, is back. That guy! Man, I hope they make it as annoying as ever, so newcomers can get the full Kezu experience. There's a reason I call him Ketsu instead of Kezu. And by the way, Ketsu is Japanese for butt, which perfectly describes the monster in more ways than one. Not even a mother can love that face. Next up, we got the weapon of choice for men in tights, the bow. By the way, 2 thumbs up for the classic Flooded Forest theme. I still remember my team freaking out when Devil Joe suddenly popped up from the ground while we were hunting Goble. It's like, ah, what's that? Huh. Never thought I'd be scared of a pickle with teeth. Anyway, bow gets a couple of notable additions from the weapon video, starting with a variation of the arc shot that actually buffs yourself and your teammates, as opposed to cancelling their moves with a rain of coconuts. Yeah, we've all been hit by those coconuts before. Then you get Focus Shot, which replenishes your stamina and also doubles as an evasive maneuver if you need to create distance between yourself and the monster. By the way, note how great Roggy is back, which is great news for fans of the I Want to Be a Cowboy song by Boys Don't Cry. If you don't know what I mean, just wait till you craft its armor. Next is the first weapon I mained when I started playing the series, the light bowgun. First off, is it just me or do the pierce shots on this video look even more awesome? My gosh, that rapid crackling sound just puts a stupid smile on my face. It's like popcorn on steroids. Anyway, first up is the Silkbind Glide Warbug art. This move gives LBG users another option for mobility and looks like it ends with an auto reload as well, though I'm not quite sure if the player was just manually doing that. Might even be a good option for evasion in a pinch. I'd just be careful when using it to approach since it can get you right up to a monster's face. And we all know how durable light bowgun users are. Then the other new move is the Fanning Vault, which totally looks like the aerial style vault from GU. As someone who loved aerial LBG and especially aerial HBG, this really brings back some wonderful memories. Ah yes, aerial HBG. One of the main reasons I still dust out my copy of GU once in a while. So much fun, so much fun. Speaking of heavy bowgun, the weapon gets several extra mobility options in Rise. This has to be like my most used weapon when you add my playtime for World and Iceborne together. Anyway, you get a sidestep, which can be potentially game-breaking depending on how often you can use it. I mean, could you imagine heavy bowgun with a sidestep? Then you get a Silkbind Glide just like light bowgun, though the HBG version doesn't end with an explosive shot, so it appears to be more of a gap closer or evasive move. Regardless, that's still a big deal for a weapon that's usually known to be slow. Heck, you even get a new counter shot, and as I've said previously, I love it anytime they add an extra counter option to any weapon. Granted, the extra mobility might be a bit polarizing for folks, especially those who consider it cheap to give the already powerful heavy bowgun mobility on top of its crazy damage potential. At the same time, I think it's good to give folks more options to play the weapon more aggressively, as opposed to just tanking and spanking behind the shield attachment. Yeah, so anyway, heavy bowgun is one of my most heavily used weapons, pun so totally intended. So I'm looking forward to playing it again in Rise. And yeah, that armor looks pretty sweet too. That looks like the armor from like that Psyduck looking monster. Who'da thunk it? Next up, we got the Greatsword. Man, look at that sword. That's beautiful. Yeah, so the first thing I noticed is that you got this move called Power Sheath. Now back in GU, or Generations Ultimate, you used to have a hunter art called Lion's Maw. And so what that art did was pretty much buff up your attack. So this one kind of looks like a combination of that with a dash added on top of it. Yeah, so you get an attack buff, as well as some added mobility for closing in, as well as dodging. You can also do this with the sword out, because it is a sheath after all, which is great when you need it, because as you know, when your sword is out, your mobility options are kind of limited. Yeah, so maybe when a monster is doing a move, your sword is out, maybe you don't have time to do a shoulder tackle, you can then do a power sheath to kind of get out of that, while buffing up your attack as well. And then you got this other Warbug art that lets you do an aerial attack without having to jump off the ledge. So basically what you do is you go up with your Warbug and then kick the monster, and then from that kick you have the option to do several moves. Anyway, these are great additions that further round out a weapon that's already fun to use. Up next we got the official weapon of Nintendo's current console, the Switch Axe. Otherwise known as the Swag Axe. This weapon retains a lot of the new moves from Iceborne, like the Power Axe Wild Swing for example. Wild Swing, you make my heart sing. However, one of the biggest changes is the fact that file effects that are activated in sword mode can now be carried over to axe mode, which is pretty neat. Yeah, so being able to switch to axe mode without losing your sword mode effect is a big deal. That pretty much means you're encouraged to use the mode that matches the situation, or even your fighting preference, without having to worry about losing effects. And then Invincible Gambit gives you a move that lets you close in on a monster while being immune to flinching or knockback. Again, another good move, given how it can be a challenge sometimes to find ideal openings when using the Switch Axe. And then you've got the interestingly named Switch Charger, which allows you to maintain your Switch Axe gauge, so another quality of life addition. Unfortunately, it won't charge your Nintendo Switch. Up next, well, Mr. Hunters, meet Mr. Weapon as we check out the Charge Blade. I'm loving the spider-themed armor on the Goku-sounding character, by the way. Once again, you get added mobility from the Warbug via a move called Morphing Advance. Based on the short snippets from the video, it looks like it combines different elements in one Warbug art, such as a forward dash for closing distance, followed by a powerful attack. So like I mentioned with some of the weapons previously, any move that lets you close in on the enemy without having to sheath is great. Then you get my new favorite Charge Blade move so far, Counter Peak Performance. I see what you did there, Capcom. As its name implies, this allows you to counter an enemy with your shield, but on top of that, the move also fully fills up your files, allowing you to follow up with moves like an SAED, for example. This gives Charge Blade users another useful option for countering enemies in addition to regular guard points. And then last but definitely not least is one of my favorite weapons in the game, the Hunting Horn. So as one of the 6 Hunting Horn users in the game, it makes me sad that this weapon always places last in the weapon rankings as far as usage goes, and most of the time it's because folks think that it's just a support weapon. But, just as I do with the lance, Hunting Horn is most fun when you play it aggressively, as opposed to duding in a far off corner. Anyway, I'm actually giggling like an idiot after seeing this video. I still am. My gosh, Iceborne did a great job in improving this weapon, and Rise takes it a step further. No more holding back indeed. By the way, big ups to the Basarios gear that was shown, as well as the gentlemanly accent used for the hunter. I'm especially loving the homages to Generation's ultimate moves. I mean, I can't believe we got breakdancing back. It's just so perfect. Speaking of dancing, you get a closing move with Slide Beat, allowing you to go through enemy attacks to get up close and personal and finish with stuff like a Spin to Win. You also get a binding attack that looks especially cool when used against charging monsters. Now I don't know if it's just me, but it also looks like the regular Hunting Horn chain combos actually come out faster. I mean, I don't know if I'm just imagining it, but if that's the case, that's actually awesome. See, one of the biggest challenges in playing Hunting Horn aggressively is how slow some of its moves are. So that means that you have to cancel and roll out of moves a lot, but if the chain combos are actually faster, then you can actually squeeze in more moves before you finally cancel or roll out. By the way, this video is how you should be playing Hunting Horn. And by that I mean supporting while also constantly attacking with style. Hopefully these changes mean that we will now have 10 Hunting Horn users instead of 6. Anyway, that's it for this video. Wow, I can't wait. So which weapon preview did you like the most? And which weapon are you looking forward to the most? Are you also looking to try some new weapons? As always, if you have any thoughts or questions, please feel free to let me know in the comment section. Once again, this is Tavi Asobi, and thank you for watching.